Welcome to the All of a Kind podcast. I'm Batya Wittenberg.
I'm Merav Hoffman.
We loved these books when we were kids, we love them now, and we hope you do too.
Today's chapter is the one where Sarah refuses to eat the soup.
Oh gosh, this one.
I love this one.
Once again, we are at, this is one of my favorite chapters.
Absolutely.
Which I think so far, this is chapter 8 of the book, and I think so far more of the chapters have been favorites than not.
That is true. And in honor of this chapter, neither Batya nor I have eaten dinner.
Yes, that's just how it worked out, but you know, it's thematically appropriate. You can have dinner when you finish the chapter.
There will be no dinner until you finish the podcast.
Well, luckily, we like the podcast, so that's not going to be an ordeal.
I don't know, I'm having texture issues with this podcast.
Texture issues?
Oh!
How have we gotten this far into the podcast without descending into terrible puns? It's
I don't
so
know.
Unlike us.
I think it's because we've mostly had guests.
So what's this chapter about? I'm glad you asked. In this chapter, Sarah engages in a battle of wills with Mama when she declares she doesn't want to eat her soup at the midday meal. Mama insists that Sarah will get nothing else to eat until she eats her soup. Sarah endures family entreaties through dinner, afternoon snack, home, and piano lessons before finally capitulating and eating a few bites of soup at the supper table, and being rewarded with a supper that doesn't consist of soup.
I'm always so relieved when we reach the end of this chapter because it's such an emotional journey. It's really interesting because it's such a short chapter and it's such a small focus.
It's so low stakes, but it's huge.
It's a very low stakes, high stakes conflict, although the stakes in fact don't come until the end, and they come in the form of boiled beef.
There we are. Since with the puns again.
Yes, it's apparently a putty episode. What do we see in this chapter that's new or different? There's not a lot going on here that we haven't already observed a little bit. We get from the previous chapters that pennies are distributed at lunchtime. We get that when the girls are buying Papa a birthday present and Ella is collecting the pennies from everybody. So we know that pennies are distributed at lunchtime, but now we sort of see how that process happens.
I thought about this when you talked earlier about the social contract, and here we see, insofar as the contract is explicitly a contract, like you gotta do this or you don't get the penny, this is where we see it spelled out. We've got the little, it's not a rhyme, but like we got the little, it's done like a schoolyard chant.
Yes. No meat, no
soup, no meat, no meat, no vegetables, no vegetables, no fruit, no fruit, no penny.
Almost like Hammurabi's code. Right? An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth.
No soup, no meat. Yes.
Right. But it's also, of course, it reminds me of Pink Floyd. You know, how
can you have your pudding if you don't eat your meat?
Exactly.
That confused me so much when I was a kid because I did not know that pudding was British for dessert.
Yes, I can see the confusion. By then I had read the Adrian Mole books. I already knew what pudding was. I probably also got it from like E. Nesbit or something. Oh, I know. Noel Streatfeild. I got it from Ballet Shoe.
Ah, that'll do it. I never read those as a kid. I still haven't read them, actually. Someday I will.
The first one is great.
Just because every so often I think, well, I didn't read this as a kid. I'm going to do it now.
I do that too. I finally started reading the Lloyd Alexander books.
Ah, I have got to reread those. It has been so long.
Specifically the Lloyd Alexander books that have the Dark Cauldron.
Taran Wanderer. The first one's the Book of Three. I remember that.
That's right. That's the one I've read so far. I will eventually get to the others. They are really charming. The other thing that we see that's very social contracty at the very beginning is Henny kind of comes in and is kind of doing Henny things. Like she's pounding on the table with her knife and her fork.
What a detail.
Yeah, I just love that. Henny is clearly musical and is coming in here and she's like, I don't need any rules. And Mama's like, you're going to wash your hands. And Henny's like, my hands are clean. Like,
she does not argue, are your hands clean or not? She says, whether or not they're clean, you're washing.
Sort of the beauty of what Mama does in this chapter. She's refusing to be drawn into an argument. She is simply stating implacably, like, this is what will happen. You don't get to argue with this. These is the rules, kid.
As a child who always argued and was exceedingly frustrated when my parents chose not to argue, but rather chose to just say, no, we are not discussing this. This is the rule. This is what's going to happen. I felt for Henny there very much. Still do.
Well, I definitely feel for Henny and for Sarah in this chapter because Sarah really gets the brunt. And you kind of wonder if Henny accidentally sets this up with Mama, you know, by saying the thing about the hands. There's a little bit of a
That Mama has
foreshadow.
already laid down the law and is not in the mood for any further argument. That can happen.
I wonder, and I think maybe it didn't happen like that, but maybe it's happening like that for literary reasons to get us used to the mentality that, like, Mama's going to lay down the law in this chapter.
Right away, on the first page of the chapter, Mama does not argue, Mama just tells you what's gonna happen.
It's like writing an English essay. I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. It's going to happen. I'm going to tell you what happened. One thing I really noticed reading this is lunch is called dinner. And that's something I'm used to from reading novels, but I wanted to call it out for our listeners because it's not immediately evident. We're talking about the midday meal here. The children have come home from school, and I was really surprised to discover that the children are coming home from school to eat and Papa is coming home from the office to eat. I just sort of assumed, I don't know why I assumed this, that Papa packed a lunch because, we see that Papa has to walk a fair ways to get to work. I just sort of assumed that Papa would be settled in at work all day, and who knows when the peddlers would be coming in or not coming in. The fact that he has a set lunch hour speaks to a kind of discipline among the peddlers.
He may have someone covering the shop, though we have never seen, as far as I recall, we've never seen anyone else work there under him, as it were, but maybe he does.
Well, technically, Charlie does.
Does he?
I think that it is stated that Charlie is Papa's right-hand man. So it's unclear whether Papa actually employs Charlie or whether Charlie just helps out when he's around, because keeping in mind that Charlie's not always there.
Because of the way Charlie comes and goes, as we have covered, you couldn't rely on him to regularly cover the shop while you're out. But also, Papa is the boss of the little shop and can just say, we're closed for lunch.
We're locking up noon or one here, and then there's the rest of the afternoon. Certainly, the amount of stuff that the girls cram into the afternoon indicates that lunch is reasonably early in the day.
Says the first sentence, it's noon.
Let's just kind of think about this for a minute. Sarah decides at noon she's not going to eat her soup. That is the inciting incident of this chapter. And she says, I'm not going to eat the soup. I think I'm going to choke on it. She's having a bad reaction to the soup today. It's the same soup she's eaten in the past. So that puts aside like a texture issue or like gender dislike. Mama says later that she's eaten it happily several times.
And it's not like she tries it and it tastes different. It's not like it smells different. This is purely just a mood.
And fascinatingly, of course, because Sarah is the author, the omniscient narrative tells us the soup is like redolent with vegetables and meat, that the predominant flavor of the soup, which gets called rice soup. And I always picture it as being like congee, which it isn't. It's basically almost like a stew because it's got meat and vegetables in it as well as rice.
Unless it's just meat and vegetable broth that gets used to make the soup. But it's flavored with, at least, meat and vegetables.
Yeah.
And it's pleasant. It smells nice.
Exactly.
Sarah likes it usually. Today she's just not feeling the soup, and a minor disinclination turns into this incredible stubbornness and refusal, and she spirals to the point of, I'll choke on it, it'll make me sick.
And she starts actually raising her voice to Mama, which is sort of fascinating because this is the first time keep in mind, these people are crammed into a tenement apartment. There's 7 of them in 4 rooms, and it's really crowded in there. And this is the first time we see a family disagreement. So we're in chapter 8 canonically here, and that's a long way to go without a family argument. Like, we could absolutely have had an argument on the first page of this book.
We've had problems, we've had little disagreements, we have not yet had anyone yelling at anyone else, and this is one of the girls yelling at Mama.
Which is so startling. We've talked about, in chapter 2, we talked about how Sydney Taylor, as the author, portrays Mama as lovely, as giving and warm and loving, and this chapter really reinforces that. And now we have lovely, wonderful Mama and intelligent, sweet Sarah, who up until this point, we've seen her build a dream house in her brain when she talks with Ella at night. We've seen Sarah worried about her library book, trying to buy a doll at school. She's an all-round, cheerful, happy person.
And a pretty agreeable person. If I had read the first half of the book, and you'd told me in the next couple chapters one of the girls is going to have a yelling fight with Mama, my money would have been on Henny.
Oh, absolutely. But I feel like Henny knows how to keep her cool. And I think that that's what's interesting about this chapter is Henny sasses Mama right at the beginning of the chapter, and Mama's like, I'm not having any of it. You're going to wash your hands. And Henny, being a reasonably obedient daughter, despite being sassy, goes and washes her hands. And she does it really like kind of halfway. Like, I'm not going to really like wash. I'm not going to scrub, but I will go and do it because you said so.
It is very much a token, sitting
fine.
down before the water has stopped running. I don't think it actually says that, but
It does not.
It is a very token gesture in the direction of doing what Mama said, but it is doing what Mama said.
One of the things that's very interesting about this chapter is that Mama really equates doing the right thing with moral goodness.
Oh,
and
yes.
Sarah has basically just had a bad reaction to the soup, like emotionally. She's like, I don't want to eat this soup. And suddenly it turns into rage crying crying and anger and yelling and outbursts. And Mama is just like, you're going to eat the soup because it's the right thing to do. We don't waste food in this family. And Mama should be enforcing the social contract. We've talked about the social contract before. It's very much on the page here. Mama has to be strict because she's afraid that she's going to have open revolt. And then the girls are going to be picking and choosing their meals. I remember my own mother saying, I can't make a different meal for each of you. We're going to eat what we're eating, right? Like that kind of a sentiment. Mama is definitely at the precipice here in this chapter, right? We don't see her say anything like it, but we definitely see her internal monologue where she's like, no, I have to stay strong on this.
It is purely internal from Mama's perspective that the principle at stake here is about food wastage and about how they cannot afford that. There cannot be even a little give on the matter of food wastage, because if there is, it could just keep going. They can't afford that. They could be in serious financial trouble. They could starve. If they're paying rent, they could not be able to afford rent. That doesn't come out explicitly, but it's this cannot be afforded. But she does not say to Sarah, we can't waste food. What she says to Sarah is, I know that you want to do the right thing. Just show us that you're trying.
Right, exactly. She doesn't put her adult burden on her child.
She does not make Sarah worry about finance more than she has to.
And I think that Sarah understands conceptually that there's such a thing as food wastage, that there's such a thing as going broke. She knows those things, like intellectually. Mama is keeping them from entering the kitchen. The kitchen is the safe space, it's the home. And one of the things that we see in this chapter is, I think this was a really interesting thing about Sarah, is every time Sarah leaves the house, she prevents herself from crying.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Right? So we have this sequence where Sarah sits at the table and she is upset to the point of screaming. She runs out of the apartment after she refuses to eat the soup. She doesn't get her meat or her vegetable or her stewed fruit. She has now skipped lunch. Her father tries to comfort her, right? So Papa's presence is really significant in this chapter because he kind of gets through to her. He's stroking her hair. He's calling her Mausala, which we're going to see. We actually already recorded a chapter about Hanukkah where we talk all about Mausala.
Little mouse, which is the sweetest endearment. I love it so much.
But we're going to get that at the end of the season, so hold out for that. He's calling her pet names. He's petting her hair. He's trying to comfort her. He's speaking soothingly. And she's almost about to crack. And somehow, in that moment, instead of cracking and saying, yes, I'll eat the soup, she starts yelling. And the anger comes out. Keep in mind, these girls are stuffed into stockings and dresses, and they're paraded all over the Lower East Side looking perfect. This is the price of perfection.
She cannot cry in public. She's 8 years old!
The pressure valve is coming off.
8! How does an 8-year-old have the kind of discipline and the belief that she should have the kind of discipline to not cry in public?
Right. And she says she doesn't want people to see that she was crying.
Right. Swollen face and red eyes. It's not even, I can't cry and make a scene in public. It's, I can't be seen in public to have been crying.
Correct. The evidence of having been upset is socially unacceptable to Sarah at this age.
What is underlying that? It's not clear whether it's, I will be ashamed if people know I cried. If it's, people will think poorly of my family if they know I cried. If it's, I will be seen as immature if people know I cried. They'll call me a baby. We don't get the reason for it.
Or worse, what if Sarah is thinking, if people see that I was crying, they'll think I had a fight with someone, or they'll think somebody is hitting me at home. This could have serious social consequences as well. We don't get Sarah's interiority on this almost at all.
Possibility that comes to my mind first is other people would be mean to me and would mock me if they saw that I'd been crying, which little kids will do.
Someone will judge me.
Someone will judge me. It's a good way of putting it.
She deliberately keeps her feelings in. She's just had this enormous outburst. She's had a fight with her family, specifically with her mother. And that's got to be enormously upsetting to her, to even be in this state of being in trouble with Mama. And the chapter is called In Trouble.
Sarah in trouble.
Her state of mind is, I'm in trouble. And then she goes to school and she works the entire afternoon.
So hungry, can't wait to get home and eat something.
And then she gets home and Mama has, again, turned the table. I love this detail. Mama bakes rolls for them every day.
Fresh rolls and butter for your after-school snack.
Can you imagine? She's not going to the bakery, she's baking them. That is an unimaginable luxury. I've never had somebody bake for me every day. So these girls are eating really well. We saw a multiple course meal, soup, a main course, dessert, and now fresh
and
rolls
tea.
with butter. And now it's time, and tea, and now it's time to do homework. So Sarah grits her teeth because Mama has presented her with the idea that if she wants to eat anything else, she's got her hand on a roll, she can taste the roll in her brain, and nope.
If you're hungry, I can warm up the rice soup for you.
Exactly. And so Sarah's like, oh, nope, nope, nope. I don't want any rice soup. And she retreats and she does her homework hungry and she does her piano lesson hungry. And then they go out to play in the street, presumably in the
Right, it's
dark,
still winter.
probably like getting close to April, because next chapter
That's right.
we
In
get
the last
Passover.
chapter, we had Purim,
So it's between Purim and Passover,
which means it's getting towards spring.
getting a little bit light in the evening. So we might get a little light, enough to play by in the street. And there's probably street lamps. And so they go out and her sisters try to help her process her anger. Charlotte, at one point, when she's still in the kitchen trying to eat the soup, Charlotte's like, just give in. You know, don't continue to make a fuss. Like, just take a few spoonfuls of the soup. Because at that point, Mama and Papa are looking at each other. They're like, how do we handle this?
I love this. Papa is the one who introduces, without consulting with Mama, you don't have to eat it all. Because it seems like the rule is you have to finish your soup. And Papa says, what if you just eat a little?
Right, just to prove good faith.
And Mama immediately goes, it's just like Papa says, you don't have to eat it all. That was not, I don't think, that was not what Mama had in mind, but once Papa has said it, she's right in line with it.
Because they have to stay aligned. Papa is the softer touch.
Little bit.
And we see this in a lot of places. I mean, not always. There is the infamous spanking chapter, which we'll get to later.
A couple books down the line, yes.
But ultimately, Papa is generally a fairly soft touch with his children. He loves them and he wants them to be happy.
And just if you look at their approaches here with Sarah, Papa is the one trying to comfort her, and he's not yielding. He's not saying, oh, well, let's just this once. No. He is supporting Mama's rule.
And he's not doing the what harm would it do, because he knows what harm it would do.
He's the one bringing the money. He knows that wasting food is not a thing they can afford. Nobody says, what if everybody else gets extra soup because Sarah doesn't want hers?
Because it's already in her bowl.
We don't want to introduce negotiation, is the point.
This has been allotted to you. It is your soup to eat. You will do the eating. I mean, unless Sarah was actually sick. Like if Sarah, God forbid, vomited or had a fever or something, right? Then Mama would be like, nope, you're going on the hospital couch.
Oh, yes.
Which we'll get to in the next chapter. But at this point, Mama's like, you're perfectly healthy. You went to school. You're going to eat your soup. She doesn't even bring that into it. You're going to eat your soup.
Papa is trying to be comforting. Mama is being steely disciplined. She's not being harsh, but she's being very, very firm. And
Mama is actually described as hardening herself.
Hardening herself. I love that phrase. Which, by the by,
yes,
can see you smiling. I know you're thinking the same thing as I am. A Jewish family, which, as we will find out shortly, does do the Passover Seder every year, is very likely to be familiar with the repeated biblical phrase in the story of the Exodus from Egypt of first Pharaoh hardening his heart and then God hardening Pharaoh's heart. And I feel like that, not necessarily used in the sense of a deliberate allusion, but it's part of the vocabulary partly for that reason.
I feel you're right. For those that don't know the story of the Exodus, Pharaoh hardening his heart and then God further hardening his heart is what prevents the Jews from leaving Egypt. And in this case, it is what is preventing Sarah from leaving the dinner table. It's a silly allusion, but it does actually make sense, especially because they're in that pre-Passover moment. Sarah is sitting there and just refusing, right? For no good reason.
The notion of hardening oneself, hardening one's heart, however one wants to say it, is the idea that I could be moved by emotion in this moment, but I cannot let myself be. I have to go with what I know my purpose is and not be swayed.
Yes.
Mama is unhappy that Sarah's unhappy.
Sarah is almost unwillingly having this tantrum. Like it's very interesting the way it's written, because it almost feels like she doesn't want to be doing what she's doing, and certainly she doesn't want to be taking it to the level that she's taking it. She's like at 11 all of a sudden, and she's like, I don't want to have the soup. But why? Like there's no really concrete
reason.
There's
this phrasing that I love right after, as you pointed out, Charlotte trying to entreat her to give in on this. She just says it so appealingly. I love it. Give in. Go on, Sarah. Whispering. And the way the narration puts it is that even though Sarah has an internal voice saying the same thing, some contrary imp had taken hold of her and she just had to follow along. I love that phrase so much. I feel that.
It was in the popular culture too. Like we definitely have shoulder demons in various depictions in media. Particularly Keller, the magician, used them in his advertising. He would often have a depiction of himself and there would be an imp on his shoulder, and then his apprentice, who became the next great magician, Thurston, used the imps in his advertising as well. So it was almost certainly the case that they had seen a Keller advertisement with the imp on the shoulder whispering in his ear, sort of telling him the secrets of magic. So that's definitely an image that's in the popular media. idea. And I wouldn't be at all surprised if that's what Sydney Taylor was thinking of, at least subconsciously, when she wrote.
Yeah, the idea that you don't want to be doing this thing that you know perfectly well isn't good, isn't right, doesn't make sense, won't benefit you in any way, but you've just got this urge, this contrary urge, just saying, no, no, don't do it. Or do the thing that you know is bad and won't help. And then you put the spaghetti in your hair, you do, you do. Froggy the
You
Gremlin.
do, you do. I think it's really interesting that even though we have the idea of like an imp taking hold of Sarah, which is also a very Jewish idea, we have the idea in Judaism of the Dybbuk.
Or the shade.
The Yiddish literature is rife with the shade and the Dybbuk, which are creatures that possess the body and cause all kinds of havoc. Think like a
Or if you go
poltergeist.
a little less folkloric and more into theology, there is the concept of the Yetzer Hara, the inclination to evil, or the inclination, the thing that makes you want to do bad. And in a whole lot of Jewish children's media, the Yetzer Hara is practically personified as something very like the little imp that perches on your shoulder and whispers bad ideas in your ear.
In contrast to the Yetzer Hara, which is the inclination to do bad things, we have the Yetzer Hatov, the inclination to do good things.
She sort of does, because the part of her that doesn't want to be doing the thing, she has a little voice whispering the same thing. Give in, go on. But she can't do it.
What's interesting about it for me is that it feels like the bad inclination is coming from externally and the good inclination is coming internally and can't get out, right? She can't make the words come out of her mouth. So
Right.
it's like she has the bad shoulder demon, but not the good shoulder angel. And so she's trying to get the imp off her shoulder so she can say, no, I really want the soup. I don't want to be in conflict with my entire household.
When she comes home from school and gets offered soup instead of the fresh roll and butter, says she wants to say, all right, warm up the soup, and she just can't. I had not really thought of it like this, but we are getting in this chapter both Sarah and Mama dealing with contradicting urges.
Like it's almost like a parallel.
Exactly. Sarah wants to give in to what Mama wants. Mama wants to give in to what Sarah wants.
And we see Mama standing in the kitchen having the crisis of like, am I doing something wrong to my child? And then Sarah at the same time having the crisis while she's doing her homework, while she's hungry and she's crying, doing her homework, and she's sitting there doing the homework methodically, and she goes and plays piano. She actually does her piano lesson. Like she's doing everything else. She's being compliant in every other way. And this is kind of where we get back to emotion will mitigate the hardness of the heart. So they see her being a model daughter in all of these other ways. But I just don't want to eat the soup. We think about all the things that go into the day of being a model daughter. She's doing all of the other ones.
She's not escalating. She's not saying, if you keep trying to make me eat the soup, I won't do my homework. I won't do my chores. I won't practice my piano. I'm not doing anything else until you say I don't have to eat the soup. She is not doing that. I feel like Henny might do that. Except she wouldn't get away with it, and she knows that perfectly well.
Sarah does not throw herself down. We don't see Sarah having a tantrum by throwing herself on the floor or throwing herself out of the chair or throwing anything.
Or even just, I'm going to go on a strike. I'm just not going to do the other things I'm supposed to do.
She just does them while crying.
Exactly. Yes. It doesn't even seem to occur to her that she could escalate. She doesn't think, oh, well, if I said I wasn't going to do my chores, then they'd be sorry. She does not want to be bad in other ways. She's just blocked on eating the soup.
I'm not even sure it occurs to her.
I don't think it does occur to her.
It might not even occur to her to say any of those things because she's an obedient kid.
She is.
Sarah is going through this torment of, I don't want to eat the soup. For whatever reason, she doesn't want to eat the soup today. And that's not optional.
Yeah.
And so instead of eating the soup, she endures hunger for the whole day.
And again, I want to reiterate, she is 8 years old.
This is the era of childhood where a lot of kids go into a same food mode.
That's actually true. I was just thinking she's little, and that is really, really rough to go without food for half her day.
It is. It's also, she's enduring a thing that a lot of the kids that she goes to school with probably deal with every day.
Very possibly, yeah.
A lot of these kids probably don't have 3 meals a day, especially at this level of luxury.
Yeah, they are generously fed considering their financial situation.
They're having multi-course meals multiple times a day. Mama is making sure her girls can be active and healthy. They're putting a lot into the food budget. And that is what is creating the tension in this chapter. But again, Mama never brings that as a club against Sarah.
Right, which so many parents would and do.
Absolutely. And I think that it is a level of restraint that we see in Mama and Papa in this chapter. Who knows if this happened in real life? But in the book, Mama is, again, with the psychology, this is how we're going to do it. Certainly had people on the show who've talked about the fact that Sydney Taylor put her own ideas about child psychology into these books deliberately.
Kind of projecting backwards forward to say, I'm going to depict my parents as behaving the way I think good parents should behave, even in places where it doesn't quite match how they did behave. Whether the purpose of that was to present a good model for the kids who would be reading it, or to honor her parents' memory by showing them in a better light, or possibly multiple things.
I'm not even sure her parents were dead when she wrote this. I would have to look at their death dates to figure out whether they were still alive. I think certainly Celie was probably still alive when she was writing these. I would have to double check that. I think that we get to the impasse. And what's really interesting to me about this chapter is, in some ways, it's kind of an inversion of chapter one. Because in chapter one, Sarah comes with a problem and says, my library book is missing. And her sisters swarm around her and help her. Mama helps her. Everyone gives her all of the things she needs to succeed. And then it's outside authority that she's afraid of. And then she is given mercy by outside authority. In this chapter, Sarah creates a problem and then opposes her entire family, and they all try to help her, and she rejects them.
And nobody can help her because this is entirely a problem of her own creation. I mean, you could make an argument, although given the circumstances I wouldn't, you could make an argument that Mama and Papa could be more lenient without destroying the household discipline. I would not make that argument. I think that within their parenting style, introducing lenience would actually probably create a breakdown. Well, introducing complete lenience, as it is, there is a little lenience here. They don't make her finish the soup, just make a token gesture of doing the right thing. It's unclear to me whether Mama is presenting that as the right thing is eating the food put in front of you, or the right thing is obeying your parents, or the right thing is following the established rule.
It is unclear because Mama never specifies which right thing it is that Sarah is doing by eating the soup. And especially because one of the predominant precepts in Judaism is honor your mother and father, because it's one of the 10 Commandments, and it's held up as a very strong Jewish value pretty much throughout Judaism.
Honoring your mother and father means is a thing discussed and argued and honored, you might say, in different ways throughout different times and places. But it's still very strong, and you don't see them cite it. You don't say, you gotta do what your parents say because honor your father and mother. It's more like, you gotta do what your parents say because that's a law of nature.
It kind of is. We've had Mama established as such a strong character at this point. There is no subverting Mama's will. The only person who can really subvert Mama is Papa.
A little bit.
And we see him do it in this chapter. He mitigates Sarah's sentence from eat the whole bowl of soup down to just eat a few spoonfuls to prove the point. Be as stubborn as your mother, out-stubborn your mother, and succeed.
I think it is significant that Papa doesn't present this as mediating between Sarah and Mama. He doesn't put it up as say, what if we compromise? What if instead of eating all of the soup, you eat a little soup? Mama, would that be satisfactory to you? Sarah, would that be satisfactory to you? That is not what he does. Not at all.
No, and interestingly, I think that's, you're going to hate this, but I'm going to bring up Little House on the Prairie. I really feel like that's something that
Interesting.
Pa would do with Mom in Little House. That the way that you were
I'm trying to picture what would this be like? What would this conflict be like if it happened in the Ingalls household? I cannot recall anything like it happening in the books, not with any of the girls. I cannot picture how that would happen. He might say, let's work out a way that this can be made satisfactory for everybody, but he might instead do what he does in some other circumstances and just go, no, discipline. I cannot tell you that you don't have to do what your mama says. And Papa presents this as, well, of course Mama doesn't mean that you have to eat all of it. Not, let's bend what Mama says, but you can do exactly what Mama is saying by eating a little of it. That is not what Mama said, but that's how he's presenting.
Papa is from a Talmudic family. Right? His ancestors are rabbis.
That's true.
So he is absolutely letter of the law versus spirit of the law.
How much do you have to eat to be yotze on eating the soup? I use a Talmudic term there. Yotze is short for yotze chavatzo, to discharge one's obligation. It is all through Talmud.
We actually run into this with Passover a lot because there is a minimum amount of the unleavened bread, the matzah, which we're going to encounter in the next chapter, that you have to eat in order to fulfill the mitzvah halacha
Exactly.
of eating matzah on Passover. I'm going to be at the Seder, I'm going to eat my matzah, it has to be a certain amount. And the rabbis argue how much is enough. So eventually they settle on kizait, which means the size of an olive. Now, as a modern consumer of olives, this has always confused me because ancient olives were smaller.
Olives come in so many sizes.
Olives come in every size. Up to, there was a really great sketch, I think it was on Saturday Night Live, where they open the can and there's just one giant olive.
But yeah, it is all over Talmud that whenever you have, here is a thing that you have to do, or here is a thing that you have to not do, they discuss what is the minimum amount that counts as doing the thing.
And we have this also in product management. We call the thing that you're going to deliver at the beginning the minimum viable product. What do I need to have such that this product will serve the needs of the user, but it doesn't have all the bells and whistles yet?
I would never have thought of making that connection. But yeah, that is a similar thing. What qualifies as the thing?
And bringing Talmudic reasoning to product management is definitely my specialty.
Papa's Talmudic upbringing going, just a little of the soup will qualify as Sarah has eaten the soup. Sarah has fulfilled the act of eating soup.
And therefore, she can move on to the next course, or in this case, the
Yes.
next meal, because it is now dinner time. And Sarah has been holding in crying for hours. She cried while she did her homework. She cried while she did a piano lesson. And then she's gone outside and played with her sisters, but mostly not because she's really upset and doesn't want them near
Because
her.
they are trying to comfort her and there's nothing they can do. So she's just saying, leave me alone, because if they're sorry for her, she'll cry some more.
Yeah, and they're trying to do the sisterly solidarity thing, which usually works. And they're like, why isn't this working? And Sarah doesn't want to cry in the street. So now she goes back in the house. And the minute she goes back in the house, she starts crying.
Because
again.
it's supper.
Partially, I think, in frustration, because there's the soup again.
Warmed over. There is this really
really
unpleasant
unpleasant
description of it's thickened and it's a lump in the bottom of the plate and it looks more unattractive than ever.
And it's warmed over, which I always just sort of picture, when you get like a thick skin on the top of soup and you have to like break through it with a spoon.
It's almost porridgey at this point.
That's what I picture. And I'm like, oh God, no, don't eat it. Rice does become porridgey. The starch will break down and it will become sort of like porridge. And so Sarah is forcing herself to eat the soup because she is starving at this point. She hasn't eaten since breakfast. She's never gone this long without eating.
And she just gives in all at once. All right, I'll eat some of it, and bursts into tears and starts to eat the soup as she's crying.
As she's crying. I once went to a restaurant on Valentine's Day and they had a sign. This was Dirt Candy. Shout out to Dirt Candy in New York City, a wonderful vegetarian restaurant. And they had a sign that said, because it's Valentine's Day and you might be expressing big feelings, this is paraphrasing. If you are visibly crying, we will provide you with an extra dessert in a glass of.
Quick, tell me sad things. I want an extra dessert.
Here is Sarah in the emotional equivalent of that. And she does say, early in the chapter, she says, I'll choke on it. And we do see her choking because she is choking a little bit because she's probably bolting her food. Because she's hungry. And the faster you eat, the soup is hot. She's forcing it into her mouth and into her esophagus. She's probably giving herself a little bit of a burn.
And also she's trying to eat and cry at the same time, which is so awful. And Mama can't take it anymore.
It's awful, and it also uses the same part of your face. So you can't really do that. And so Mama is like, oh, nope, we can't have this. My girl can't cry into her food any longer. And she goes and she takes away the soup, which is just a huge relief psychologically to the reader. I kind of want to see the soup get scraped into the sink or something, like into the trash. I'm really afraid that Mama's putting it in the fridge for tomorrow, but there is no fridge, so I don't think there can be.
Oh, that's right. We don't have an icebox, which is, I don't know either. Good point.
I don't know what's happening to the soup in the meantime, like from a food safety perspective, because it's being allowed to cool, and then Mama is reheating it, presumably in a pot. And with what we know about what rice does when it's left out today, that could actually be a food safety issue, but thankfully it's not.
No.
Sarah eats some of the soup and then is rewarded.
Yes, and dinner tonight is boiled beef and potatoes.
And the fascinating thing to me is this little bit at the end where Mama takes pity on her daughter and doesn't force her to eat a vegetable. Maybe she doesn't cook vegetables with dinner. Maybe she doesn't serve Sarah a vegetable. It's unclear. But there's no vegetable.
I think
on her
it's that
plate.
she didn't serve vegetables to anybody because the way it phrases it, so that there need be no further cause for a must in eating. It's not just that she doesn't want to give Sarah this problem. She doesn't want to have this out with anybody tonight. What if it's contagious, or what if just if anybody finds that this is a vegetable they don't like? And the odds that these are fresh vegetables is pretty low. Yeah, there might be starting to be some fresh vegetables, but they wouldn't necessarily be. I don't know, would they have had canned vegetables at that time?
I think there are cans at this point, and certainly we've seen Mama putting up
That's true.
preserves.
So it could be her own home canning.
Right, beans or something, beets. There's a lot of things you can, but I don't know. We don't really see a lot of examples of vegetables.
Presumably, there are occasionally in other meals someone going, "Oh, are we having beets? I don't like beets. Oh, are we having carrots? I don't like carrots." And Mama has to be the disciplinarian and say, "No, you have to eat it." And tonight, she does not want that to come up for anybody.
Well, the whole
Mhm.
family is worn down. They've been in this standoff between Mama and Sarah for hours, and it's creating not only tension between Mama and Sarah, but between Sarah and her siblings. And we don't see a big sibling group hug at the end. That tension is lingering and remains, right? It doesn't get resolved at the end of the
I
chapter.
feel like we can be pretty certain it happens, but we don't show it.
Oh, absolutely, it happens. By the beginning of the next chapter, I'm sure that this is a funny story about the one time Sarah didn't eat her
All
soup.
the relief is between Sarah and the reader and Mama. Mama is also relieved to have this over.
And we almost don't get Papa at
I
all.
mean, he's there, obviously, but he's not on the page at dinner. We did not introduce what's on the page, what's not on the page. We just dove right in.
The soup was so appealing, we dove in.
I do think we could discuss at this point what is not on the page, because we've covered what is here, and we have covered a little bit of what's not here in terms of Mama not. Oh, but no, it is on the page. It's just not in the dialogue. The financial issues underlying the food discipline. That is on the page. It's just not spoken out loud.
And we do get a sense that the family is a little bit more well off than we initially think because they do have piano lessons. They are able, in the previous chapter, we talked about Mishloach Manot. They're able to distribute food to their neighbors as part of their Purim celebration.
Yeah.
And they have embraced generosity in food, not wastage, but generosity.
Yeah.
And so we have those food forward chapters back to back. And we're about to have another chapter where food plays a role. I would say that the book has a bunch of different types of chapters. We have externally occurring problem, internally occurring problem.
Yeah.
And then we just have observe the family at their play or observe the family in crisis. In this particular case, it is an internal
It's
crisis.
internal and also internally caused.
No one outside the family knows. I don't get the impression, and certainly the book doesn't give you the impression, that Sarah goes to school and says, "Oh man, I didn't eat a thing at lunch. Can you give me a sandwich?"
No, they don't have that.
No, she just endures this very stoically. She realizes she brought the problem on
It's
herself.
kind of worse, isn't it, when you know that you are the one causing this problem for yourself, and you know exactly how to make the problem go away, but you can't.
And I do think that this is a lot of what drives parent-child arguments in the home, particularly around food, is this exact kind of resistance where you're like, well, I just don't feel like it today. And that can become, especially if the parent argues with you, it could become an entrenched thing. Mama's cultural background keeps her from engaging with Sarah in a way where that could happen. I definitely think that there's both a psychology component and probably a cultural component to this. We don't have the American cultural space, the Jewish cultural space.
Yes.
This is not placed in any of those. It's entirely in the context of the home. It's really just kitchen table, stoop, reference to school, reference to the front room. We have not left the immediate family
By
circuit.
far, most of this takes place not just in the house, but as you say, at the table. It's extremely, extremely tight focus.
We don't even get the girls individually besides Henny for a moment, like in a little vignette. It's like, you know, when you get a Sunday comic and there are the two panels at the front that they can take in or leave in. Henny is those two panels where she has the little sassy argument with Mama. And then you have the whole comic, which is Sarah's battle with the soup. And if this was a Calvin and Hobbes, you can just imagine like the Spaceman Spiff style illustration of Sarah versus the soup.
Die! Die! Why won't you die?
Right, you see Sarah stabbing the soup with her spoon.
I suddenly want to see some of these illustrated Calvin and Hobbes style.
Sarah's frustration is just so palpable. And it's not like Mama serves them the same food every day. They're getting variety in their meal.
They have variety, but they have structure. Lunch/dinner, it is called both on the page. Soup, meat, vegetables, fruit. That is the structure, and it's going to be different soup most of the times. It's going to be a different meat, maybe. It's going to be different vegetables and different fruit, but there is a structure. Isn't there also a Frances book where she's having fights over what she will eat?
Bread and Jam for Frances.
Bread and Jam, where she won't eat anything but bread and jam.
My middle sister, loved that book so much, but took the lesson from it, I can only eat bread and jam.
Oh no.
And so there was a long, protracted battle of bread and jam in our house, and that's why I brought up same food, because the reality is, when you're a little kid...
I've heard of that being a thing for a lot of kids.
My husband decided at one point to only eat white food when he was a kid. And it's a thing. If it was white, he would eat it. And
Sure.
if it wasn't white, he wouldn't touch it. And that created a lot of problems for proteins. How do you feed a kid white protein? And the answer was chicken and fish. But ultimately, kids will get fixated on a certain subset of foods. And it's much more common today when we're aware that people might not be at the same place on the spectrum as we assumed they would be in, say, the 80s when I was growing
Yeah.
up, and that those food decisions might actually be the result of having a differently wired brain. But when you come out to your parent and say, I want only white food, or I want to only eat bread and jam, or I will never eat soup, your parent is panicking. Some part of your parent is recalculating the food pyramid in their head and going, how am I going to get fiber into you,
There's
kid?
two things, at least two, that your parent could be worried about. A parent whose job it is to make sure that the kid eats, well, eats at all. And then, once that hurdle is cleared, eats the right things, the things that will give the kid a balanced diet with the sorts of nutrition the kid needs.
Well, imagine, especially today, when so many kids have really severe allergies. Somebody just deciding, I've certainly seen people on the internet being like, oh, we put peanut powder in it to make it nutritious. As somebody who can't digest peanuts, I'm like, oh, well, that's horrifying. You could kill someone
It's
that way.
not that it's horrifying to put peanut in something, but you, by God, do not do that and not tell the person who will be eating it that it's got peanuts in.
And that's absolutely something people did, I would say, in the 50s, probably earlier than that. And certainly even
Mhm.
when I was growing up in the 80s, it was a really common idea that you would just stick something
That
into.
is still being done, and I think trick your kid, and I have even more scathing opinions on trick your husband into getting enough nutrition. Your husband is a whole adult.
Your kid is a whole person. There's no reason to take bodily autonomy away from someone else in order to satisfy something that's bothering you. That being said, there's always limits to that. Like if your kid wants to eat something that causes you to call the poison control
I mean, yes,
center.
you don't let your kid eat bleach. I'm not sure what to do with that particular situation that isn't do not have full food transparency with your child who has preconceptions about what foods they don't like. But yeah, this sort of goes back to children's stubbornness about food is sometimes based on allergies they don't know they have, texture issues that they can't articulate, making rules for themselves because they are just learning that's a thing they can do and they want to practice it, which I think should be encouraged on principle, but not necessarily encouraged in every particular. It's good to make rules for yourself. This is a bad rule.
It's absolutely possible to encourage your child to eat healthily, and they could still have dysfunctional eating
But I
habits.
think this chapter also illustrates fairly well that sometimes it's just stubbornness that just happens sometimes, and it could happen about anything.
And we cannot leave this podcast without me calling out to our favorite children's book in our house, which was Gregory the Terrible
Oh
Eater,
gosh, have I read that?
which is the touching story. It was on Reading Rainbow when we were kids, so you may have seen LeVar Burton reading it. It is the touching story of a young goat coming to terms with the idea of wanting to eat human food, being encouraged to eat goat food, and compromising between the two of them and making his parents
I
happy.
have read this book. I don't remember it very well, but that is definitely a thing I have read.
Yes. And one of the things that his parents do in a similar bout of psychology is they allow him to gorge himself on goat food,
Junk, yeah.
right? They've convinced him that goat food is the thing, right? They want him to really embrace goat food. And in this case, goat food is discarded human things. Like there's a barber pole, there's tires, and there's a part where Gregory is just eating his way like hungry caterpillar style through an entire dump, right? And then Gregory lies there on the page, lying there, like holding himself, like, oh, I ate too much. And then and only then does he embrace the idea of moderation. He'll eat some human food and some goat food, and they start combining them. Shoelace spaghetti and a whole bunch of other cute and innovative things. Eggs, but instead of toast, there's wax paper and some orange juice. So it's a balanced meal between goat food and human food. And I've always loved that because it is that same psychology that Mama and Papa are trying to employ. The first they try arguing with him,
Yeah.
and eventually they see that he's just going to have to discover for himself how unpleasant it is to do the things he wants to
There's
do.
so many different ways that a parent could approach this thing. And I'm now kind of fascinated by the notion of different children's books and how they show what you do with that and how the children's books depict parenting.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think we've
Yeah.
had three in this chapter. We've got the Ur text, which is our all of a kind family. And then we have Gregory, and we also brought up Francis. So I think that's three different perspectives. And I'm sure that there are more. So write in and tell us all about your favorites. I'm sure that there are lots of picky eater books, especially modern ones that we're not aware of.
So I think that's our chapter for today. Thank you all for joining us. I'm Batya Wittenberg.
And I'm Merav Hoffman. We're really glad you're here.
Tune in next time when we'll hear Sarah say, "I don't feel so good this morning." Our opening theme music is the public domain Dill Pickle Rag, performed here by Arthur Pryor's band, courtesy of the Internet Archive. Our closing theme music is the La Sirène Waltz, also in the public domain, written by Pietro Dero, performed here by Daniel Gunderson and Sonny Larson. All of a Kind Podcast's logo is by Al Benbow. Please see our full production credits on our website at allofakindpodcast.com.